Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy CIZZY. I'm back again. Look, we haven't chatted in a while, chat, and I don't know why I'm saying chat. I've been watching too much Twitch streams, to be honest. But we haven't chatted in a while, ladies and gentlemen. Been on a little bit of a hiatus with the Voices of Value podcast, trying to figure out number one, the direction we want to go with the podcast, the type of people we want to have, type of conversations I want to have that match up well with my background and my interests so that the conversations flow well, but also, stay in the lane of entrepreneurship and content and business in some way or fashion, or tie it in some way or fashion. For those of you who are new to the podcast, when you watch this episode, Voices of Value podcast started off talking to minority entrepreneurs, small business owners, trying to have conversations with them about some obstacles that they've overcome, some obstacles they didn't expect, and just the overall journey of starting and running a business as a small business owner. I started it 2018 in San Diego. And then floated into Kansas City. The pandemic hit, really started focusing more and more on small business owners, less on like musicians and trying to get huge guests on. And then it's just flowed all over the place since then. But we're back again to get to the point. And today we have a gentleman by the name of Georg Tibbles. He's a six-time Super Bowl champion. Just kidding. But George, go ahead and let him know who you are. Let me know if I said your name incorrect. And just give him your 60-second splurge about who George is.
Totally. You said my name correctly. It's Georg Tibbles. I've been in the social media space creating content as a video editor, video producer, and social media manager for different companies for about 5 to 6 years now. And I also have started making content myself, just personally, specifically around like running and being a beginner triathlete. And so very well versed in the world of social media. It's my whole career, and now applying it personally and seeing where it goes. So that's who I am. That's where we're at. Met Collis at Run Club, and we've been vibing ever since.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love that, George. And, one of the initial questions I always go to at the beginning of a conversation, especially when most people will immediately go to the reason I reached out to them, right? Which is their career path and, what they're interested in right now. But where did it all start? Where did you grow up? What were some of your initial interests? Did you always think you were going to be in this lane, or did you think you were going to be a NFL six-time Super Bowl champ?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually grew up in Chicago in the suburbs. One of my first jobs was actually being a swim instructor for children, and I actually did that for a long time. I started as a swim instructor, didn't really know where I wanted to go with my life, and I actually grew through that business to help them open numerous locations. We became a regional manager, a regional trainer for numerous swim instructors, and it was an amazing opportunity that I learned a lot from. Not really in the social content creator space at all when I was doing that. But inevitably, what happened is I left that to move out to California and in Los Angeles specifically because my wife goes to UCLA for her PhD. And so when I came over here, I kind of job hopped a little bit, wasn't really happy with what I was doing. I had a lot of good experience managing people and doing that, but it wasn't really something I was happy doing. I really enjoyed the swim instructor part, the fitness elements, helping kids be healthier. It's a life-saving skill. I liked all of that, and I had a lot more purpose with that company. And so just job hopping, doing a bunch of random things that didn't have that same purpose, left me pretty empty. And so eventually, what happened is my wife actually had to study abroad for her PhD. And so I just quit my job and I was like, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go, we're going to live abroad for a whole year. We lived in Mexico and Spain, 6 months at a time in each place. But the big change that happened over the course of that whole year is I spent a ton of time starting to create content. So I started making content for Twitch streamers, a bunch of gaming content, just because it was kind of the circle that I was in, and just had a lot of fun with it. I wasn't working, so this was like my gig at the time. And then I started making my own content. This was something actually more movie related. I started talking about like movie reviews and gaming reviews and that type of stuff. And then over the course of that whole year, I edited for a handful of people, built up a portfolio so that when I actually returned to the US and had to find a real job again because we had to move back to Los Angeles, I was able to get a full-time job as a video producer and video editor for a swimming app. So it actually came full circle. And it was a swimming app called My Swim Pro, and this teaches more adults to fine tune their swimming, people trying to get a lot faster at swimming, triathletes, that type of world. And it was an amazing turnaround that I was able to pretty much start my career from scratch with this experience. And I really enjoyed that. Did that for a few years and really built up my portfolio. Still worked for some other people on the side just for fun to keep it diverse. And then eventually that position, the whole marketing team just was let go from that company. They went in a different direction. So sad as it is, but it was a great experience. I'm grateful for it. And then after a couple months, this year, I've started working at a new company where I'm the social media manager for this company. And so have a lot of experience within YouTube, within the social space, and in general it's been an interesting journey to get to this point, but a lot of it is self-taught. A lot of it is taught from the leaders in the industry that I've been able to like connect with because of the roles that I've had, and it's been an amazing experience. So, like I said, now I do a lot of stuff on the side. For me personally, I don't really edit for other people anymore. I try to kind of build up my own brand, and just putting everything I've learned into that. It's been a really cool experiment. So feel a lot
I love that.
more purposeful than I did just randomly job hopping. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just because my general interest, and I think we discussed this before, but what part of Chicago are you originally from specifically?
So it's a suburb. Most people, the biggest area that it was pretty much is called Naperville. So yeah, it's just Naperville suburb and really great place to grow up. But
Yeah, I used to visit Wilmette and Evanston, Chicago, like those parts of like the suburbs of Chicago a lot growing up. Very I love that city. It's a city with a lot of culture, a lot of different vibes in each like suburb you're in, and then I think it's a super underrated city simply because it's cold as shit. If it wasn't
yeah,
cold as shit, I feel like it would be like above LA, above Miami in terms of popularity and people trying to visit there. But that cold weather really does turn people off. So
yeah. I mean, even just it's a very what's the word? It could be all over the place. In one week, you could have an 80-degree Sunday, and then on Tuesday, it's going to be 50 degrees, and you don't know what to wear. You don't know how to live your life. You can't plan for anything. So it's very all over the place, but it is a beautiful city, an amazing actual city infrastructure too, with just great museums, great sports. It's a good time. But my
transportation
my my
pretty
wife and I
side.
really like LA now. So yeah, we're pretty locked into the 70 degrees year round. So
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And it's understandable based off of your interest too. It's a good place to live. I want to dive back to your early years as a swim instructor working for that company. What do you feel like is one of the unique qualities an instructor needs for like people to really trust them as their leader? I mean, look, I think people think about swimming from like a simplistic standpoint, like, oh, it's a sport or, oh, it's something we do for fun to take our kids. But you mentioned something really critical, which is it's a life skill. And
mhm.
personally, I can barely swim. I don't know how to tread water. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and so it creates an internal fear for me to not want to get near water in general, for that
Mhm.
exact reason. And I was listening to a podcast a few months ago. I was talking about like the black community as a whole having really low rates of people who know how to swim, and like a lot of a very high drown rate for like that population for the statistics that are track. So, long story short, I think it's really important. I'm glad you did that, but I would love for you to talk about, what were some unique qualities you feel like you needed to have for like a student to really listen to you, to really embrace
Mhm.
what you're saying, and to really trust you with really their life, especially if they're just getting started.
No, totally. Yeah. So being in the company I work for, I'll shout them out. It's called Bear Paddle Swim School. And one of the very important qualities that I looked for whenever I was hiring instructors, and one thing I had to really embody when I was teaching kids myself, is you have to be, um, I mean, you have to be very adaptable. But the more unique skill is you also have to be very okay with being silly and being overtly fun in a stressful situation. So, what I mean by that is there were many times where I would work with someone who is, let's say, 5 years old, and they could be petrified of the water. They could be already very scared of the water. And on top of that, they might also be very scared of being handed off to a stranger because they might not, go see people outside of their family or friends. So you've got something they're very scared of, which is water. You've got a person they're very scared of because they don't know you're a stranger. And so the way you're going to have to build a connection and build trust with them is essentially be really silly, show that you're, a fun person to be around. I'm not going to ask you to do anything you don't want to do. Be very direct and very patient throughout that whole process. And you even have to be very direct and patient with a lot of the parents or guardians in the situation because, like you said, you're not super confident swimming. There are a lot of parents that aren't confident swimming and are trying to get their kids in place so that they don't grow up with the same fear that they've grown up with. And they're scared to hand them off to do this. They're like, I don't know how to swim and I'm scared to even be here. It's just like a whole environment that's a very real scenario that happens every single day, I think, in those swim schools. So again, adaptability, patience, but that ability to be fun under a stressful situation is really key to long-term trust with the students and the families. Because if you don't have that fun energy to be able to kind of dampen the stressfulness of the situation for them and for you, you're really not going to make any progress. You have to be fun week over week over week. And then eventually, after however many lessons it's taken, you get them to sit in the water with you. And then over another month, you get them to actually put their, face in the water. And then over another month, you get them to actually move with you in the water and whatever. And then after a year, they can actually move by themselves and so on and so forth. So it's definitely a very patient process. But in terms of a unique skill set, it takes a lot to uh, be fun under that stressful situation because it is something where you don't want to be the cause of someone making their fear worse. If you accidentally look away at the wrong time and they do swallow some water or they drown for like a second, you've immediately lost the trust of the parents. You've lost the trust of the child, whether they are consciously aware of it or not. So yeah, it's a very unique role. It was something I was super passionate about. Still am passionate about it. And I think everyone should put their kids in swim lessons. I think it's really important. And ideally, you're putting them through swim lessons with an instructor that has the qualities that we're talking about here.
I love that. Yeah, and you develop so much capacity and skill in what you just explained for a multitude of years, and then kind of what seems like rapidly had to, change scenery to Los Angeles, and then go through a series of job hopping experiences where you maybe didn't love those jobs. But what do you feel like from what you just explained to me there in terms of like that cheerfulness and the type of energy you need to carry into stressful situations? What did you learn from that experience that you took into those few years where you were trying to navigate what was going to be your next career path? So in LA during that job hopping process, how did you take some of those lessons and some of those skill sets from the swim school and carry it into some of these short-term opportunities to kind of help keep you afloat and keep your mindset in the right place?
Yeah, I was very open-minded to the opportunity to coming out to LA and what that meant. I've always really loved film. I had never been to California before we moved out here. I didn't even get to see it before we came here. And so I had a lot of hope for what moving out here would look like in terms of the long term. Even though I didn't have a plan per se, I knew it could lead to something. I knew my heart was set in some sort of creative realm, whether that's in the film industry, whether that's in content creation. But I knew my heart was set on trying to get to that. I think I always knew that from being very goofy and creative with the kids throughout my swim lesson career, making content for them here and there. I did a lot of random marketing things that would happen, and you could just feel the spark that was starting to be lit. And so following that gut feeling is why I was like, we need to go, we need to, because we had other options. There were other options to go to a school on the East Coast. There were options in the middle of the country. There were options to stay in Chicago. And so we made the very conscious choice to go to California and come to LA, for her and also for different reasons that I wanted to come. And so I followed that gut instinct, came out to LA, and like I said, hopped jobs. And a lot of the ones I had were focused around being very managerial because that was a lot of my later end experience. I could have fell into the swim instructor role, but it would have been pretty dramatic of a pay difference of where I ended up at my company coming out here. So that's why I didn't go into that. But finding some different managerial roles, a lot of them ended up falling within the HR realm. And tying into your specific question, a lot of what I had to kind of utilize skill set wise was a lot of patience, a lot of interpersonnel planning and whatnot, that I had gotten from my last role was like a regional training manager. So I did a lot of training, and so that falls within HR umbrella. But I think that HR is also a landscape you have to be very adaptable, and you also have to be pretty fun under stressful situations because constantly there could be situations where you know, there's something really serious happening and someone's made an accusation, or there's something legally happening and we have to kind of like completely change whatever it's been affected, or we've got huge turnover and we have to be able to manage that turnover while keeping the peace and all these different things, right? So there's a lot of, again, what I kind of learned from my experience at the swim school with kids, I did translate into a grander scope of needing to be very patient and fun through stressful situations because inevitably life isn't that serious. You know, we could have all these problems at work, but we're not, the swim lesson stuff was more life-saving. Like I always say, we're not doctors. I'm not out here doing surgery. So who cares if we mess this up, or who cares if we have to, put in a little bit of extra grind to get through this next week or whatever because someone called out. It's not life saving. And whereas I would say for the swim lessons, it was life saving. You got to be serious. But for a lot of what I was doing in HR, it wasn't that. And so, yeah, I think just trying to remind people of the reality of that and not take it so seriously. And then, yeah, long term for me, just trying to know like, hey, I'm not super happy with what I'm doing, but one, a paycheck's a paycheck. Two, I'm grateful to be here in California and I can like network and evolve and see what happens. And three, I took the big risk to quit all of that to be able to build up the portfolio that inevitably got me where I wanted to go. So, yeah, pretty happy with how I kind of planned out that, even though I didn't really have a plan. It just kind of slowly unwrapped itself as time went on.
Absolutely. And if you had to think back to like a defining moment where you were like, oh shit, I think like diving more into my creativity, diving more into content and production, diving more into media, like if you had to think of a defining moment where you're like, I think this might be the place I want to roll my dice. I want to go test out this industry. I want to play around with my skill set and desires here. What moment can you think back to where you're like, all right, I'm about to go all in on this for a while? Like, was it the day before you guys left to go to Mexico, or like, was it weeks and months before that where you were already posting content online, already having fun, and you were already on your way out of like HR, on your way out of management, and rolling slowly but surely into content?
Yeah, no, for sure. So throughout COVID, I had this HR role. And just to be a little bit more clear, I worked in an HR role at a retail large store. So it was a pretty large store. I had like 200 plus employees. Um, Not a small situation. And so it was very stressful for me. And so throughout COVID, which was already pretty stressful, like because it was a retail store, like we went and worked the entire time for COVID. We did not work from home. We did not like have days off to do this. Like it was, we're there constantly giving people their toilet paper. So it was rough. And on top of that, I was HR throughout the whole thing. And so we're constantly getting new protocols, we're constantly getting new laws, new rules from the company of what social distancing needed to happen, what different training people had to go through. It was very stressful. And so through that, I was very much like over the HR aspect of what I was going through. I was like, this is good. I get why I'm needed and why this is it, but it's not for me. Just because I was good at it doesn't mean I liked it at all. So I really didn't like it. Um, and I didn't really have like an end in sight either. I was like not really sure how to kind of get out of that situation. And so what I actually started doing was I actually started live streaming. At night, I started to just live stream the game because I was already gaming, and so I was like, I'm just
I'm
gonna.
so sorry to interrupt. That just the way you transitioned into that was like funny. You were like, life was stressful, shit was hard. It was crazy, and so I started live streaming. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I was like, okay, I don't know how to get out of this, and I don't feel like I have the at this time, I didn't feel like I had the skills, or maybe I didn't think I was good enough to like go and make YouTube videos and be someone that would be watched in that capacity. But I was like, okay, I'm already gaming and I know people live stream. This is before it got like huge, like, but people did it and people have been doing it for a long time. So started live streaming and I actually got pretty good at like doing it in a way that I was growing. So over months, I got like 900 followers or something, and would get subscribers. So people would pay money and all this stuff, and that was a cool outlet for a long time. To be able to like feel creative, like make graphics and you'd make different intros and you'd experiment with what I'm live streaming and that was really cool. And it did slowly burn me out doing the very stressful HR manager job and then also trying to do this on the side. And so eventually when my wife was like, "Hey, I need to go abroad. What are we going to do?" Because we didn't know if I was going to go. Like we weren't saying like me quitting was not on the table at all. And so it was a big conversation. And I brought up, well, what if I just left? Like, what if I tried to, oh, from the point we were talking about it. So it was like early in the year. I was like, well, what if I just tried to like finish this job out while I learn a few things in the content creation space, try to actually do something, and then maybe give me a whole year to see if I can actually do anything with this and like build up my portfolio and see if it's anything I actually like. Because I didn't really have the opportunity to put the time in to see if I liked it to that degree. And so, yeah, we did the finances, we made sure we could do it. And so that's when I decided to pull the trigger and make that big decision. And then I just like put the time in that year abroad to really see if I could actually edit videos well. If I didn't feel like I was good enough, I had the time to learn and watch YouTube videos and tutorials and practice and whatever. And that's why I was so connected with other streamers because I was already in the space. I was like, hey, let me edit clips for you. And this was like peak TikTok gaming clip moments. Now it's way more saturated, but like years back, if you there weren't everyone wasn't doing it. So if you were doing it, it was a pretty big deal. And yeah, I overdoing that, I actually really enjoyed it and just like kept grinding and learning it. And that's kind of where it kind of snowballed into. Because yeah, I just was getting really burnt out with the HR job and just knew it wasn't for me. And I know live stream, it's like a funny thing, but it was a creative space for me to kind of just like show up and had fun with it and experiment. And it's no pressure. It's like, who cares? And it just led to being able to career change. So it is pretty crazy to be able to say that that's what started it, but that's what started it.
I love that. I love that. And since then you've worked, currently at Think Media, behind the scenes at My Swim Pro, um, but now you're focusing more on documenting some of your own content, from running to some of the triathlon content you've been creating recently. The question is, how has being both the storyteller and the subject shaped your perspective on like being authentic, with your content, I guess, because you played both roles of like being behind content other people are creating and now being both the person behind the editing and the production as well as the active storyteller, on
Yeah.
and so talk a little bit about how that shift has been and maybe what you've learned from being behind the scenes that you've been able to apply to your own content. But yeah, don't want to give you too
Yeah.
many questions to answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I actually think I think coming from a background of editing for other people first, I think actually helps me where with me making my own stuff now. I actually think if you were to do the opposite, you're the subject first and you're trying to make content without ever doing it. I think there's way more of an uphill battle to like, how are you shooting stuff? What equipment are you using? How are you going to edit this? Those are all the functional things. And on top of that, the creative elements of like, how do you actually tell a story? How's the hook going to go? How fast do these cuts have to be? And all these different things that go into it. And so being able to kind of do all of that first for somebody else. So like do it with, at my swim pro, I was doing it with numerous swimming athletes. I was doing it with the CEO, a whole bunch of different things. And then at Think Media, we do it with the CEO again, and we do it with numerous people within our program. And so then to be able to apply that to me, I feel like I'm super prepared because I have all these skills and knowledge where I'm like, okay, now I just need to be the face of it. It's like, who cares what I like? Who cares? That part's easy. That's like such an easy part for me. So, yeah, I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. I think it's kind of like I got to the point where I was making so much for the different roles that I was doing that I was just kind of like I feel like it's a no-brainer to just start doing stuff for me. Like it's kind of like if I want to like I have a personal Instagram, I have a personal TikTok, I would just start making stuff for fun. And then I started to be like, well, I could be a little bit more purposeful with this and see where it goes. And then it decided to kind of like get some momentum. And I was like, oh, something's happening here, maybe I could make this something on the side and see where it goes. So yeah, I think I felt like I've had a pretty big upper hand having that experience in the creative space, doing it for other people and just having to show up and kind of be a little bit purposeful with what I'm shooting as the subject is honestly not that hard. And in terms of what I will say in terms of being a subject is if you're not used to it, there's tons of video editors out there. There's a ton of people behind the scenes, and not all of them are comfortable being in front of the camera. The difference with me is I spent years being in front of the camera live streaming, and I spent years in front of the camera, doing different things for that part of my life, and then also for the different companies I've worked for. I've also been on camera in random moments, so I'm very aware as to kind of the anxiety that can follow that, the general presence that you want to have. In the beginning, it can feel very fake. You don't know how to like, how to deal with yourself being on camera. But I have spent enough time in front of the lens that I know that I can be myself, and I think that's why it translates really well. So. Yeah, I think I have a huge upper hand compared to people who don't have a video editing experience or any of that.
Hell yeah. And like based off what you just said though, my secondary final like backup question to that is what's more stressful or anxiety provoking? Publishing a reel or a piece of content for a client or publishing your own like TikTok video and watching it get like one view? Like what's
Definitely the client. Definitely the client. Because
okay.
for me, it's like I the thing with a client or another person is depending on their knowledge and experience in the space, their scope of what success looks like can be dramatically different than what my scope of success looks like. And if I have a video that's a dud personally, I know I could take that video and look at it very strategically and be like, okay, well, something clearly failed here. It might be when I posted it, it might be the first frame of the video, it might be the text I'm using, it could be the captions, whatever. It could be a fluke in the algorithm, and we just need to repost and see what happens. But me knowing all of that, there could be 20 different things that it is why I don't really care if my video drops. But if a client has a video and their video is a dud, again, I'll have the same thought about everything it could be, but the client's initial reaction to it could be pretty negative unless they're also very experienced to the point where they're thinking the same way I am. But a lot of people are going to be like, "Well, this is a dud. Why did I pay you to do this?" So it is like a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say a little bit. A lot more pressure for most of the client situations because you want to make sure it performs well. And I think really the reverse engineer way of thinking about this is like you want to make sure that you're very clear with the client of what we are thinking the success is. And based off certain outcomes, I also like to say we can, rework the video to try it again or whatever, whatever, whatever. So I would definitely say the client is much more of a stressful situation. And I think that's just part of also my outlook with my own content is like it's definitely more for fun right now, and I'm excited about the prospect of where it could go. But I don't think I'll ever, hopefully, knock on wood, get to the point of being that stressed out about a performance of a specific video because a lot of it is like it's more of a science than it is an art, and that's a very important kind of framework to think about.
Yeah. And speaking of frameworks, like, I'm a personal trainer, and so a lot of the content I engage with online is typically, probably similar to yours in some sense in terms of a lot of running content, a lot of, people this new generation of hybrid athletes, all, different personal trainers and sports scientists and physical therapists sharing, what we hope is helpful information
Mhm.
online. So, for creators like me who maybe don't have the biggest following or and fuck following, like don't have the most engagement, you know what I'm saying? And we're trying to create more content online, but not get like demotivated and like, just have fun doing it and like maybe enjoy the process a little bit more. What is like a mindset, one or two mindset shifts you think fitness content creators could shift for themselves in order for them to be more consistent with content, number one, and number two, to not be so upset about like, how long it might take for something, or maybe even shift their perspective around performance, if that question was clear enough.
Yeah, no, totally. So it's definitely two different things. You brought up followers and how it's like whatever because engagement and it is very important to understand that that is true, especially right now. It didn't used to be true, but it's true right now. Like I heard someone say the other day, some industry person, the social media is dead. We're in the interest media zone. We're no longer in social media, so people don't care about following. Our feeds are now built to show us what we're interested in. So that you just described your whole feed, right, is filled with tons of fitness content. Regardless if you follow any of those people, you're getting the interest stuff or the stuff that you're interested in. And that is a good thing for exactly the people you're talking about, people who want to, fitness creators that want to grow in the space. We should all be very happy about this situation because now it's kind of a free reign for whoever puts out the best videos. And that can seem a little intimidating, but it's also a great opportunity because essentially the only way you're going to be able to grow is one, if you're willing to put in the time to always make your next video a little bit better than your last video. So from a mindset perspective, I put out a video today. If it's a dud, then it's like, okay, well, what could I have done better in this video? What could I have done to spend a little bit more time on this video? Show it to someone and be like, hey, tell me three things you don't like about this video. That type of thing. And even looking at analytics and seeing retention graphs to see, hey, we got a huge drop off at 2 seconds. So that means your first 2 seconds are bad. They're not good enough. So it's just a matter, and I also think it's important to frame. Sometimes it's not a matter of good or bad. It's a matter of what worked and what didn't work. So I've made a great video the other day that I'm very proud of. And it was a video that was shot really well. It was a video of me running in the Santa Monica Pier and then going in the ocean. And I love the video. But in terms of a viewer, there isn't a lot of value there besides just looking at someone running in this really nice place. So it's not going to be a video that's going to outperform some of my other videos. And being aware of that and what you're delivering, what's the point of the video? What are you delivering to be able to earn the engagement you're seeking is, I guess, an important mindset to really think about is, are you earning the engagement by delivering something valuable to the to whoever your target audience is? And then are you putting in the time to always try to actually make your video better than the last video? And that means putting in the time to learn new skills you might not know. It means putting in the time to review analytics that might be really boring to you, but we all need to spend the time to know what went wrong in this video because you can have an opinion, but opinions don't really matter. What matters is structurally what went wrong in this video. And I will tell you, I would say a huge majority is it's either you didn't deliver enough value in the video as a whole, or your hook is terrible. And it's probably both. But from a structural standpoint, the hook is the most important thing because if you lose someone in the first 1 or 2 seconds, the rest of the video could be the best thing on the internet. But if they didn't get to it, they didn't get to it. And so Instagram's not going to push it or TikTok's not going to push it. So yeah, I'd say the mindset shift for sure about making sure delivering value to your target audience and then just putting in the time and effort to make your videos better. It's the only way you're really going to be able to grow over time. And I do think thinking less about what's good versus bad and what I did wrong or whatever, it's just about, did this work? Did this not work? And if it didn't work, how can we make it work? It's not, it doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah, I love that. I have what I perceive as a somewhat hard question for you, but I think it'll be fun for you to brainstorm on. So imagine you come across like a 55-year-old dude's been in the personal training or fitness industry for like 35 years, right? He's built up a successful business. He's paying his bills. Kids are good. They're gone through school. He's one of the best coaches in the country. If you meet him, he might not be popular worldwide, but when you go to that town in Havenport, Connecticut, like everyone's talking about this one guy. How would you sell this gentleman on why he needs to engage or not engage, why he needs to be on social media? You go, you meet him, you hear everyone in town, like you're just in this city for like 3 weeks, everyone's talking about this great coach, and you're like, how come I can't find him on Instagram? I can't find his website. Like, can't find anything about this guy. And they're like, yeah, he doesn't like social media. He's always talking shit on it. Just really doesn't like it. If you were like told, hey, I need you to go sell social media to this guy and I'll give you like $1 billion, like how would you sell it to him? Why he should be on social?
Yeah, so I have a couple different ways I would approach this. Because one, I was going to say, if he's not interested, then he shouldn't do it. Like I think,
Added in the $1 billion.
yeah. If yeah, exactly. If that wasn't on the table and he just wasn't interested, he probably shouldn't do it because if he's not interested, he's not gonna care to the point that I'm describing. But if I had to convince him otherwise, because maybe it was for the benefit of his business or who knows, I would definitely mention that I would lay out the framework of what the landscape of this world has been for a long time. I'd look back and I'd say, hey, a decade ago we might be talking about Yelp reviews, but Yelp reviews are probably a dud now, and we're talking about this is people are looking up social media profiles to see if they're worth going to, and it's less about how many stars someone gave you and more about a genuine experience that someone is going to be able to kind of demonstrate through video. And so I would start with that. I would even go further and say, look, you can make even however much money you're making, that's great. You can make way more money if you're on social media. You could start doing digital coaching. You could sell different courses and products. You could get brand sponsorships. You could get affiliate marketing. You could get ad revenue. There's so many other revenue sources you could do if you unlocked the social media realm within your scope. So I would definitely kind of go the money route for someone that didn't really, who wasn't really convinced. And then I would really talk about how just the landscape has changed for how people decide where they're going to eat, who they're going to train with, what gym to go to. We less and less look at that. And even if you and I still look at a Google review, because I do, the generations after us don't do that. They are even more looking at TikTok. They don't Google something, they TikTok something. And even more so, they started to stop doing that and they're starting to, chat GPT things and whatnot. So it's less about the staying in the old way of things and not that you can't keep that going. I think that's good if especially if you've got it, but you can't ignore the new frameworks that exist.
I love that. That was great. And I think that makes me want to dive into platform specific content, I guess you could say. So I'm gonna approach this from two different ways, and I don't need you to answer them both back to back. If you forget one of them, just let me know. But
Mhm.
approach number one is, like you were just saying, just like search and how people are using search now. TikTok for restaurants and new coffee shops to go to, Instagram for this and that, Facebook to keep up with old friends from middle school, like YouTube for long form enjoyable content or for DIY how to do something. ChatGPT for all things like what's or whatever it might be. And ChatGPT is not a social media account, but you get what I mean. So, question number one is from your perspective, and this may not be like true globally, but from your perspective, what is each platform good for? Like in terms of like what type of content do you think does better on, let's go TikTok, IG, and YouTube?
For sure. So with YouTube, I'm going to start with YouTube. YouTube is still best for like SEO purposes. So search engine optimization. So what I mean when someone is searching something, it still is going to be really high up there for um, different things you're searching for because it's owned by Google. It's still a Google, it's still interweaved within that ecosystem to make it one of the top contenders for searching anything. And long form allows creators, allows businesses to create content that's a lot more in depth and digestible on a large scale. Uh, and it has short form, so you could still get those short, tight things if you were looking for a quick answer. So that's really important. But I will say, again, generations after us, I do think they're still so like the way TikTok and Instagram, this is like a random little thing, but the way TikTok and Instagram and probably YouTube, I don't know for sure though with them, their algorithms now read everything. So what I mean by that is it's going to scan your whole caption, but it'll also scan the text on your screen. So if you have a video and it's got captions on it, it'll scan what's the text is, and it'll also scan what is happening actually in the video. So like you and I are having an interview, right? But even when this video, if it ever gets uploaded to Instagram and it sees this stuff in my background, it will know like, oh, this is a Star Wars poster. And it is aware of that. Not that it's going to push us to Star Wars people, but like if this whole screen was filled with it, it would know it's going to push it to Star Wars people who like Star Wars. And so visually and all of that, I just think that the algorithms on TikTok and all this stuff is what helps make them good for a different type of search, uh, and why captions are important. Because if you were to search best coffee shops in Los Angeles on TikTok, you're going to get a bunch of great videos that are going to give you a bunch of different options that are available. Um, so I think all of the platforms that you said, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, SEO is really important. Whenever you're making content, you want to be very specific with the words you're using, that you're verbally saying, what your background looks like, and then also what captions you're putting underneath your videos so that your keywords that you're looking to try to get to your target audience are included. And that will make your video more likely to be pushed to the right people over time. Um, and so the general scope for all three, searching. I think that TikTok is not really good for community building. I think it's really good for virality. That's probably your best bet with getting a viral video if you just were to hit the algorithm the right way. I think that's kind of, in my own experience, what I've seen. And then I think with YouTube, I think it's your best area for building a much deeper connected community, um, where depending on what you're selling or what you're trying to advocate for, you're more likely to be able to sell to those people because they've, over time, I think, built a deeper connection with you because of these longer videos. Um, like if you can get numerous subscribers that are actually committed to watching whatever you're making, I think that you're more likely to consistently see those people than you are on Instagram or TikTok. The only other thing I'd say for Instagram is I think Instagram is probably the best for actual DM conversations. I think TikTok, it exists, but it's not nearly as clean. YouTube, it doesn't really exist outside of a community tab. You could do polls, you could do all that stuff, but it's not really a direct conversation. Whereas Instagram, there are tools in place and other sort of third-party things you could use for DM automation. So you could have things that are, someone watches your video, they like what you are preaching, whatever you're saying. They're like, hey, you know what? I actually want to reach out and see if I can work with this guy. And you could have them DM you and say, hey, do you do coaching for someone who lives in Georgia? And if you had this third party thing set up, even if you don't, you could manually do this too. They're still directly talking to you, and you could have these selling conversations in DMs and actually close sales a lot more than I think you can on the other platforms. So I would say virality for TikTok. I'd say long form connection with your building a bigger community on YouTube and creating free resources for your community, like free products almost, because you can do like workouts, you could do whatever on long form and dive a lot deeper. And then Instagram would be that DM conversing and selling opportunity. I think that you really need all of them. I don't think you can do, I think you could do just one, but I think if you're going to spend the time on one, you might as well try to spend the time on all of them to be able to have that diversity with what we're saying here.
Hell yeah, I love that. And the second part question to that is, I mean, you kind of spoke to it a little bit in saying that you don't think anybody should just do one, but let's say there's archetypes of humans, right? There's different characters, there's different personality traits, there's different skill sets each individual has. So when we think about like the different archetypes of a fitness trainer, maybe somebody who's like always been antisocial and doesn't talk and doesn't really like to show their face, but they really care about health and fitness, and they want to make it into a career. There's that archetype. So what type of content should that person be wanting to create? Then there's like the super outgoing person who's always been loud and the most attention seeking kid in school, and also went into fitness and is jacked with a six pack and super hot with a great jawline. So I'm not going to give all these random examples, but you get what I mean by archetype. Like for the
Mhm.
different archetypes, even if you just had to create one in your head, like an avatar, what type of fitness trainer, what type of personalities or character traits would somebody who does really well on TikTok have? And I know that's kind of like it's a gray area because anybody could do well on TikTok as long as you make a good piece of content. But for someone who doesn't like to post their face online, like what platform would you recommend they use, or what type of content would you recommend that they create? Just trying to throw some ideas out here there to kind of brainstorm for anybody who's listening to this and they're like, oh, I fucking hate making TikTok videos, or I suck at writing, or I don't know how to write newsletters, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a tough question because I think specifically with with fitness, because I do think there are a lot of niches and a lot of different things that someone could make content about with being a faceless channel or content. With fitness, I think that would be very hard. I think that unless you had like a camera person that was able to film certain angles that only showed parts of the workout that you're doing or whatever, but I think just verbally talking through, so unless you're really skilled at like just talking through something, I still think you'd need visuals though. I think people who look at fitness content, they're looking for like, I need to visually see what this whatever you're asking me to do to be able to do it. So I think my advice then would be like you've got to start slowly flexing those muscles to try to just get over that because I think you know, I think you need to be able to share yourself and share your journey. If someone's going to be able to work with you, the only way me as a consumer is going to be able to trust that I want to pay for your services. I need to be able to see who you are. I need to be able to trust you're a real person. The internet's a whatever place, so it's like I don't want to be scammed. That's one layer of it. The other layer is I want to be able to know like what's your vibe? Am I going to connect with you? Like I do think we haven't really talked about this, but I think authenticity is really important in the content that you're creating. So yes, you need to deliver value. Yes, you need to be a little bit scientific about how we're making a video and what the hook is, what's the retention for this video. That's an element of it. But that last element, you need authenticity because people can smell fakeness from a mile away these days. We're too in tune. Our feeds are too good at telling us what we want to watch that we can smell when you're being ingenuine and we can smell when it's like just something is a little off. And so for me, I spent a long time like making content on other things and whatnot because I thought, oh, this is going to have the most success, or oh, this is going to be the thing that makes me the most money. But over time, I was like, even grossed out with myself. I'm like, oh, this isn't like, I don't like making this because it's not me. And so when I make the content I do now, like you've seen, like the running content, triathlon content, it's very, very me. And I'm very, it takes a while to kind of be able to like open the floodgates of letting you be able to story tell in that way. Um, but I think it's very important because it's the only way that we're going to be able to like actually like break through that wall that feels impenetrable. Like you have to do it in a most authentic way because you're the only you that exists. You can't try to be somebody else because that person already exists and they're already watching that person's content. Um, and so going back to the initial question of people who are not as comfortable, I think it's important to be yourself. I think not everyone needs to be. I think my advice would be when I say you need to flex the muscles and try to actually get yourself comfortable on camera, that does not mean you're going to try to be the energetic crazy person because that's not who you are. You shouldn't be the energetic crazy person, but you can be quiet on camera. You could be a little introverted on camera. It doesn't really matter as long as you feel comfortable enough to turn it on and just act like it's not there or act like it's your friend that you're catching up with if you're trying to talk to it and just be real because I don't think I think the again it's very possible to do faceless stuff, but I think it's slowly going to become harder and harder to do that, and it's honestly easier just to get more comfortable being on camera because I think the human connection that people want is more important than trying to like hide from that.
Yeah,
So
and at the end of the day, like you're either on social for two reasons. Number one, to like genuinely have people connect with you and identify with like the same values you have and identify or be interested in the value you're providing, in which case you would want people to trust you and you would want to do everything you can to make sure these people trust you and know who you are and feel good around you and feel good about what you're saying, or you're on there to just straight up flex, in which case you can just do whatever you want, post fake pictures of yourself, do whatever you want. But no, I love that. That was great. We're coming up to to the tail end 5-10 minutes of this show, so I want to hit you with a few rapid questions. You don't have to rapidly answer, but I'm just asking you quick back to backs. So number one, I want to ask you. We'll make this our last high value question, and this will be: give us a 3-step framework about how to think about a piece of content. So if I get off this call right now and I want to make a piece of content around doing single leg lower body exercises in the gym and why they're important, like what's the 3-step framework of how I should think about creating a decent piece of content versus just pressing start and being like, yo, so lunges are really good because I think, you know what I'm saying? What's the 3 steps I should think about? Is it hook and then got to say something right here and then this is how you close it out? Give us a quick little 3-stepper.
So number one, I would research whatever idea that you just said. So like if you have an idea, it could be a workout, it could be mindset, it could be a tip, whatever. Think of the specific thing you're doing. Search exactly what that thing is already made on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, if you're making short form. Watch like 10 of them and specifically watch the ones that have high engagement. So see what the hooks they are, what hooks people are using, see what the visual is, see how quickly the video moves, how quickly do they get to the point of whatever they're trying to say. Are they going from a negative hook? Are they doing a positive hook? Like, why should someone do that workout? Like, do a bunch of research about this general idea of why someone should do whatever you're asking them to do and then how to deliver that. So do research. Secondly, learn from that and be like, okay, now I know all of the successful ways. How can I put my own spin on this? How can I make this my version? And try to get creative. Like just have fun with it. Just be like, okay, I need to specifically what I would be thinking about is the hook. I think you can mimic most of the other part of the video is probably just going to be the workout or some part of it, a visual of the workout, but the hook of why someone should watch this thing is the most important thing. So off the top of my head, it's like you said a certain workout, right? I don't even know what it was. Uh, what was the workout? Were you muted?
A single leg lunge or a lunge.
Single leg lunge. So if why should someone do a single leg lunge? And I would go maybe there's the negative hook of like if you don't do this, your knees will be this when you're 40, or this will happen when you turn 50 if you don't do this, or blah, 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 blah. And then you can go into the lunge, whatever. So I'd, again, research, and then I would have fun and strategize. How can I put my brand on this? And then I would execute that like that's the way I'd break it out. And then the fourth one would be like after you've hit published, after you've got 24 hours of analytics, I'd see, okay, how'd the video perform and how can we do better next time?
I love it. I love it. Thank you for that one, George. All right, now into our rapid fire. All right, so uh, what's the most elite pre-race or post-workout or post-run, marathon, triathlon meal you've ever had? So, like, if you were thinking about like a pre or post-workout meal in the past few weeks or the past few years or one of your favorite events, what's the best one and the most embarrassing slash worst one that you've had?
Most embarrassing. Well, most embarrassing, there was one time in my early days of running, I didn't realize how important electrolytes were and even water, really. And so this is before I'd done any marathons, before I'd done any half marathons even. And I was doing a long run. It was like 12 miles. And this was in Chicago. It was in the summer. It was really hot. I didn't have any water on this. I had water in the car, but I didn't have any, like, didn't bring any water. And I ran the 12 miles and I almost fainted because of one, how hot it was, and two, I just didn't hydrate myself. I didn't have any electrolytes. I didn't have any gels. I didn't have anything because I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. And I almost passed out. So that was a very eye-opening, embarrassing experience. Nobody wants to pass out from their own fruition. So that was not great. Um, in terms of really great meals, I can't think of too many that are like epic. Besides donuts, I really love donuts. If for anyone who talks to me in person, they know I'm a bakery boy. Like I love croissants, I love donuts. So there's definitely been a few times where I've done a pretty long run and I've had like 4 or 5 donuts afterwards. Probably ruined the cal intake, like whatever. But yeah, that would be probably my biggest that I've enjoyed.
You know, what the crazy thing about this world with social media and everything like that is everything like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, that would be a good piece of content. So you said you're a bakery boy, and I was like, oh, that would be a great Instagram name, the Bakery Boys. And it's just a whole bunch of guys that just go to different bakeries every week and shoot content together. Or like a piece of content, George, after he like finishes a run, he's like, yo, the Bakery Boy is back. And then
Yeah,
it's like, and I'm just like, ah, great piece of content.
yeah, yeah. It is.
All right, I love it. I love it. Okay, so if training for a triathlon was a video game, what would be the difficulty setting, and what's the boss battle or like the battle boss? You know, at the end of a game, you're like running into the final battle boss. Like, try to think about it from that perspective. Answer however you want.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a good question. It would definitely be hard, difficulty hard. If I'm thinking of the mindset of like easy, medium, hard, and then there's like a extreme difficulty, I'm gonna go hard. Um, because you could definitely do a triathlon. I think a lot of people, I think people can do triathlon a lot more than they realize. Even though it does feel a little out of reach, it feels like something that's a little scary to do because it's swimming, biking, and running. But the reason I say it's hard is not just because of the physicality part of it, but because of how much equipment you actually need to accomplish the thing. That was probably the hardest thing I've had to do is you got to get a bike, you got to get a wetsuit, you got to get all the equipment to be able to run safely, hydrate, fuel safely. Like we're talking hundreds of dollars, even if you do it from like that's a budget way to do it. That's the way I did it. But if we're talking the way most people do it, we're talking thousands of dollars. So I'd say that alone makes it a hard thing. And I'd say the boss battle, honestly, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is it's going to be whatever the person is most scared of. Because I think a lot for me, I was scared to bike on the road. I've biked a ton inside, but to bike on the road in LA where people don't really like bikers and it's not the most bike friendly community, depending on what neighborhood you're in. And so that's a scary thing. I don't want to get hit. I don't want to, fall off my bike because you're clipped in. And so that's a scary thing. And then on top of that, you've got the ocean swim. Some people are really scared about that. Like you brought up, like you don't swim super well, you're not super confident with it. So if you were trying to do this, you might be really scared to swim in the ocean because swimming alone is scary, let alone swimming with like seals and jellyfish and God knows what. So I'd say it comes down to whatever someone is actually scared for in that sense, because it's definitely going to be something. It's going to be boss battle energy to overcome that. And for me, it was really both the two things I just said. I've accomplished both, but I still each time I do them have to slowly like get over that fear and be like, all right, we're out here. Let's rock and roll.
I love it. I love it. Great answer. Final question of the day. Um, so when we think about content creators around running and triathlon training and all things, let's just say conditioning focused events or competitors and the content that they create. Okay, so start there. Um, Rant or rave, or start with the rant and then a rave about content in that lane. And so, content right now on Instagram and TikTok. Let's start with the rant about how you feel about that content, and then start with and then go ahead with the rave, and that's how we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, totally. I think my rant is twofold. I think there are a lot of people who are fake in that space. And what I mean by fake is they don't actually show an authentic experience. And I think that's really important with health and fitness because I think anyone who's actually interested in health and fitness, especially beginner people or people who are looking to lose weight or people who are looking just to be healthier, like not even aesthetically, we're talking about actual cardiovascular health, flexibility, losing weight, whatever it is, it can be very scary and it could be very um, what's the word? Like just someone could be very apprehensive about that experience because they don't want to be judged or they don't want to fail or whatever. And so to see a bunch of creators kind of make an experience that doesn't show how tough it can be, um, and be honest about the experience while also trying to motivate other people. I think that is what bothers me. For example, I see some runner people there. It's a big trend where I've seen runner influencers will do like mile four, 8:30 pace, and they're not sweating, they're whatever. And it's not that some of these people can't actually do that. But there are a lot of people who fake that experience and they didn't actually run 10 miles. They only ran maybe two and they just shot themselves 10 times to be able to do whatever. So I think not being really true to the experience because I think it's important to show what that experience is like. So even if it is hard, someone is prepared for it to be a little hard, but we can do it together and you can watch my content to try to help you do that or inspire them in a way to like, I just did it and I'm, a normal person. You could do it too. I think that would be the rave part, honestly, is people who are being more authentic with their experience, is much better. And so yeah, that would be my rant. I think people being fake is kind of annoying.
Hell yeah. And then it sounded like you kind of answered the rave part on the at the end there. So did you want to go with that with the rave? Anybody who doesn't do that, anybody who
Well, yeah, I'd say for the rave, I think we live in an interesting time where, like I said, we're kind of leaving social media and we're in the dawn of interest media, which does allow for anyone, even if you have zero content made today, you could have the almost the most much more of an equal playing field than you did a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and so on. Not to say you're going to go viral overnight. You still have to do a lot of what we're saying of being very structural with how you make something. You have to deliver value. It's still a lot of hard work, but I think the rave there is just the excitement that we should all be feeling that we have an opportunity here, and that people in this space, fitness creators and so on, it's a really good time to be able to hop on making content and try to learn and see how you can grow because it's like I said, it's a really good landscape to be able to evolve in. So yeah, and I think there is a rise of authenticity that I'm excited about. I think there's a lot of people in the past, again, being fake, over hypey too. Like I said, we talked about people who are really high energy. And I think there were a lot of people that were faking that because they felt that like the Mr. Beast of the world were being successful and they needed to be exactly like Mr. Beast to be able to make any sort of name for themselves. But I think that slowly died down and there's been people that have proved otherwise, which paves the way for anyone else like you or me to be able to be ourselves and know that we're going to find our audience out there. So I think that's also something to be very excited about.
I love that. I love that. George Tibbles, ladies and gentlemen, let them know where they can follow you, find you, support you and your content moving forward. And after that, we'll say goodbye.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, everything is pretty much it's at George Tibbles, all one word on Instagram, on TikTok, should be the same. And even on YouTube, you can search George Tibbles, you'll find me. So I'm hoping to make more long form this year. Don't really know what we're gonna do there yet, but I'm excited about it. And but we make short form content constantly about pretty much beginner tips on running, triathlon stuff, and just trying to have more fun in the running space versus trying to be serious all the time. So hopefully I'll see you guys there.
Hell yeah. My name's Kyle Stutzer. That was George Tibbles. This is Voices of Value podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and press share. Thank y'all. Peace out.